Welcome to the Track to AI podcast, your guide for AI and tech solutions, powered by Shay2. I'm your host, Amber Amordiki, and I speak with experts about how AI can be a tool for companies, not a replacement for employees. From AI integration to practical use cases, you'll get the clarity you need to make smarter decisions for your company. If you're ready to learn about AI solutions that actually work, well, you've come to the right place. It's time to get on track. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Amber Amordiki, your host. AI is everywhere, and wherever it's not, it will be. But you guys already know that. You might even be using AI right now, in this moment. And on this show, we talk a lot about AI's impact on companies and the global workforce at large. But no industry has had a more polarizing reaction to AI than the entertainment industry, specifically film and TV. Now, on one hand, there's a lot of concern. We saw it during the 2023 writers and actors strikes, where creatives feared how AI could impact job security and ownership. Those strikes lasted over 4 months, if you recall. And even today, some film festivals only accept works made with zero AI. But on the flip side, studios and production companies are actively adopting AI to cut costs and improve production efficiency. Even the Academy has nominated films that are open about using AI in one way or another, like the animated shorts All Heart and Ahisma. And last year, two of the Oscars' biggest winners, The Brutalist and Emilia Perez, also used AI in some capacity. So you have studios trying to keep up with this new technology while facing resistance and hesitation from the very people creating the work. Sound familiar? Well, today's guest is here to debunk some of the myths and fears about using AI in filmmaking and production. We'll hear from her in just a moment, but first, please be sure to follow the Track to AI podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you use Apple, go ahead and rate and review the show. It really helps when it comes to growing our audience and getting recognized by Apple Podcasts. So please do that. Also, we have a free Gartner report that you can download at www.tracktoaipodcast.com. It is the 5 best practices for AI adoption. It's perfect for CIOs, CTOs, or anyone trying to convince their CIO that they should adopt AI. So go check that out. Again, that's at www.tracktoaipodcast.com, and it's free. All right, guys, let's get into it. My guest today is Katya Alexander. She's an award-winning film producer and head of production for Showrunner, which is an AI-powered platform that allows users to make their own animated shows. I cannot wait to talk about that. Katya has produced feature films like Pretty Problems and The Mirror Game, as well as documentaries like 8 Billion Angels and 4. Katya, welcome to the Track to AI podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we dive into the whole AI talk, I know that you're a fan of adult animated shows. And what I want to know is, what character would you love to be for a day?
Ooh, that's such a good question. Oh my gosh. So many just like flooded into my mind. But I think ultimately I would love to be any member of the family in the Bob's Burgers family, because I just love how much they love each other and how supportive of each other they are. And I love their family dynamic. So being any family member from that family, I think would be really amazing.
That's a great answer. I feel like I relate to each character depending on like the type of day. Like one day, like I'm Bob, another day I'm Tina. But I probably closely relate to Louise, probably.
Yeah, she's my favorite one.
Yeah. All right. So getting into it, you've been a producer and filmmaker for over a decade now, which is amazing. When AI started showing up in production spaces, what was your gut reaction to that?
Initially, I was extremely scared and very against it, which is one of the main reasons I started working in it because one of the big things I've learned is if something scares you and you want to have control over it, you do have to be involved in some way. I do think that a lot of the protests in the streets were extremely helpful and they moved things along, but ultimately being in the room with all the people who were building the apps and building the platforms allowed me to have a pretty major say in the things that were actually happening. Um, and so initially I was really afraid of it, and then as I got more involved and sort of saw under the hood more and saw how it was actually being used, my fears started dissolving more and more to the point that now I have very few fears about AI.
I do like how honest you are about how it did scare you at first, but that was something that you decided to lean into instead of run away from. So, and like you said, once you kind of discovered the ways that it can be used, that kind of, cleared the air a little bit more and probably got you like excited to see what the possibilities could be.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, most importantly, the possibilities for a lot of the creators that I work with, because I do work mostly in the indie space where budgets are limited, and that often means that ideas have to be limited. But one of the big things I've seen with AI is that ideas don't have to be as limited anymore. Of course, you can't make anything possible, and AI in itself does have its own limitations. But I've been able to see people where it might have been their 2nd or 3rd film in their career, it allows it to be their 1st film in their career.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've heard from people within your industry when it comes to AI in the production process? And how do you maybe not push back, but try to educate them?
One of the really big misconceptions I see is a lot of people say, the big phrase of like, your job will be replaced by AI. And the truth is, your job will be replaced by a person who knows how to use AI. Um, and if you don't want to be replaced, you should be that person. You should learn how to use these tools. A great example that I always say, there's two major examples, and that is when editing moved to digital. If someone was applying for a job and they showed up with a Steenbeck and a razor blade and were like, I'm here, I'm ready to work. Unfortunately, that person probably won't get the job. As the same thing when QuickBooks and when Excel came onto the field, if I was hiring an accountant and they showed up with a leather ledger, I probably wouldn't hire that accountant. I would work with someone who knows how to use the new tools. And AI isn't it isn't super automatic. In fact, when I see somebody in a 48-hour film festival or something with a time crunch and they used AI to make their movie, my jaw hits the floor because I'm like, it literally would have been easier and faster to just film it. So the fact that they used AI meant it took significantly more time and more energy to create it because AI, even the program that I work for, it's not as automatic as people seem to think it is.
I would love for you to go deeper into that point because I think there is this perception that when someone uses AI, it's almost like with a snap of a finger, they are able to create whatever they want. But if you could kind of explain what you mean when you say that it would have been easier in like a 48-hour, film festival contest or whatever if they had just actually, filmed it and not used AI. Uh, yeah, do you mind just going more into that?
Yeah, so taking an animated film, for example, if you wanted to create that with AI, the process that we have found that, makes an actually good film is that you would first do a hand-drawn storyboard that is a level of, stick figures or something small. You use that as a basis for creating what we call an AI storyboard, which is essentially the first frame of every single shot. Um, each frame could take 30 minutes, maybe an hour of prompting. So if you're thinking about a film that has 1,000 shots, for about a 30-minute pilot, let's say, you would probably have about 600, 700 shots. So that's 30 minutes for just the frame. You haven't added any movement to this frame yet. And then you have to take that frame, add movement to it using one of the many programs. And sometimes some of the movement is even better if you film yourself and then you transfer that movement onto that shot. So you have to take each and every single shot individually and figure out how you're going to do each and every single one while keeping a consistent look because each program can change your look a little bit. So you have to make a consistent look and consistent movement. And then most of the time you have to go over and rotoscope over it because there might be little elements of the shot that didn't work out very well. So you can rotoscope that out and maybe hand draw something over it. So there's even still hand draw animators being hired in this process. And then you still have to sound design it and record the voices, and all of that requires actors and people. So what we have found is we've actually hired more animators on average for a show than an actual hand-drawn animation company does for a similar show.
Wow. Wow, yeah, I highly doubt that a lot of people know that, in that process, and like you said, you have to hire more people, even with the help of AI. I think this is a perfect time to talk about Showrunner. So if you wouldn't mind explaining to the audience, what is Showrunner and who is it for?
So ultimately, Showrunner is for the fans. It is not necessarily a way that Fox or someone would come in and create a show. Maybe one day, but it's not the initial and full on intention of the program. TV shows that are original can be created for the program in many different ways. They can use AI, they can do it hand drawn. That part is a little bit irrelevant to us because what the program does, it allows fans and viewers of a show to go in and remix the show. So that could mean adding themselves as a character into the show. That could mean making a spin-off show. An example I always give is, if you're a big fan of The Simpsons and The Simpsons was on the platform, you could make a spin-off show about Moe's Bar. You can also change the ending of the show. If Game of Thrones was on the platform and you didn't like how it ended, you could go in and make your own ending to that show. So it gives the it's almost like, fan fiction on crack. Like, it allows people to go in and literally create more episodes, um, and create their own endings, create their own storylines, add their own characters, and create spin-off shows of the shows that they love.
Fan fiction on crack. That's amazing. But, and it actually does help, though, understand the point and the usage of Showrunner. What are some projects that you've seen that you're like using Showrunner where you're like, whoa, this is next level?
I mean, honestly, every single show that comes up, like every new show that comes up on Showrunner really shocks me because they all have such distinctly different styles that are so shockingly different. We have sort of a style that looks a little bit like, not necessarily like Tim Burton, but that sort of gothic, crazy creep is called Creepy Curiosities. We have our own reality TV show called The Villa, and you can be a member of you can add yourself essentially into this reality show. um My favorite show on the platform is Exit Valley because it's a satire on Silicon Valley, and not the TV show, but, like, the literal Silicon Valley, and it allows our joke is that, all these people who have created these pieces of technology, you can use this technology now to make fun of them. You can make fun of Elon Musk. You can even make fun of members of our own company. They are uploaded onto the show just as much as everybody else is. And so to me, it's very fun because I love scrolling and seeing the things our users create. I saw one where they made 7 Elon Musks, and they are all just arguing with each other. And so to me, it's really fun because it's characters that you immediately recognize because 'cause they're real people. Um, but our other shows I think our most beautiful show is called Everything is Fine. It's a 3D animated show about wizards and love. Um, and so I'm really excited about all the shows on the platform. They're all distinctly different from each other, but I would say that Exit Valley is the one that people use the most.
Yeah, no, I've seen, I'm on your website actually right now, and we're gonna link the website to, in the show notes for our audience to check it out. But yeah, the animation styles are beautiful. I mean, they're so impressive, and they're so different from one another. Question, so every show right now on Showrunner, they're animated, right?
Yeah. We do have a couple of live action things that are coming through the pipeline, but right now, all the shows on the platform are animated.
That's awesome. So as you're, eventually transitioning into non-animated shows, what is the difference between what the AI is used for like an animated show? I know you kind of uh, went through the process a little bit earlier, but compared to a show that's not animated, what are you using AI for differently?
For a lot of the creation of the live action stuff, we are, we're filming things as normally as you could imagine. We just shot our first feature in December, and, we had a crew, we had a team. It was just like every other live action shoot I've ever done. But then we go in and we train models based on the characters, based on the setting, based on and the fact that AI is getting so much better over time, it allows us to do that so that people can come in and create more shots that look exactly like the movie but are fully generated. Now, one of the big things that I also wanna say is without having shot the movie, there wouldn't necessarily be the data there to create this. Like, creating the data to train these, models, it's not even just the movie itself, it's all the footage that was on the cutting block as well, because you need every single shot of every single room to see the entire all the angles of it. And so I know that there is this like massive fear of, well, if you can generate more scenes to a movie, then in theory, couldn't you generate an entire movie? But what I have really found is it was the fact that the movie was filmed and created is the only reason that it can be generated in the first place.
So it sounds like AI then, these AI models that you're training, they're mostly used for like post-production?
Yes and no. So we do use AI a lot for our VFX. And again, in terms of like, I always stress this, that means we're hiring a VFX team that is using AI in their process. I have never met a director in my life that wants to sit in a dark room and make a movie completely by themselves. And just because tools exist doesn't mean the director can do their own VFX. And so we use the tools to do VFX or some level of post-production. For animation, we are generating the animated, projects, but in the way that I described, where we have, 6 to 7 animators on that are each creating their own portion of the script. We have voice actors coming on, but they're just using AI to add the motion to the shots, to generate the first frame of the shots. Um, but then for us, where we're the most interested in is the AI is mostly to generate more of a show. It to like you can upload yourself and do a style transfer so that you are in the style of that show, and then it can create that scene. Um, and we have 2 different types of even generation styles. Some shows use a rigged approach, which means it's not generating from scratch. It knows all the characters, they're pre-rigged, the settings are pre-designed, and the AI is just putting everything all together. And then we also have shows that are fully generated. I will admit that the fully generated ones are of higher quality than the rigged ones. But we initially did with rigged, and we're sort of moving over to fully generation as AI is getting better. But the AI that we're using is really to put the power in the fans' hands.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's an important distinction to make is with these AI tools, fans can, like you said earlier, find their favorite show on the platform and remix it however they wish to. That's super, super cool. Okay, we're going to take a quick ad break. Coming up, are creatives the best type of AI leaders? And of course, I have a bad joke for you guys, so stay tuned.
Shitu's Track to AI framework helps businesses adopt AI easily. In just 8 steps, you can unify data silos, maximize your ROI, and increase employee buy-in. Our experts will create a custom plan designed for your AI. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
All right, the ad is over. It is time for the bad joke of the week. Katya, why was the computer late to work?
Why?
Because it had a hard drive.
Oh, that's a good
Yikes.
one. I like that one.
Is it? Is it though? It's a bad joke, guys. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, moving on. I've heard you say once, Katya, that creatives can be the best AI leaders to emerge during this like AI renaissance, if you will. Why do you think that?
Well, with AI, one of the most important things to have is taste, because if it can generate an unlimited amount of things, then you need to have very good taste to know what is worth sharing, what's not worth sharing. I even see it on social media, like, people are obviously generating their captions for their posts, and sometimes I'll read it and be like, "This is garbage." Like, did they even read this before they posted this? Did they just copy and paste? And so I think that's one reason why creatives, are so good in this industry is because they already have developed their taste. That's their biggest superpower is that they have good taste. And then the other reason is there's so much that AI can't do, taste being one of them and storytelling being another, like true deep storytelling. And so the skill that is rising right now is the ability to tell a story, is the ability to have good taste and discern what is good, what is bad. And the other thing is really creative problem solving. That's one of the things that AI can't do. One of my favorite jokes is people have been prompting ChatGPT. They say, "The car wash is 100 feet from my house, and it's a beautiful day outside. Should I drive my car to the car wash, or should I walk?" And AI almost 100% of the time says, "Oh, if it's a beautiful day, of course you should walk. 100 feet driving that amount? That's crazy." And so having the ability to do creative problem solving, high level creative problem solving is probably a skill that would never be replaced. And so being able to develop those skills, which creatives inherently have, is what makes you hireable.
Yeah, I mean, that's super well said. That's so funny that ChatGPT. Uh yeah, I think sometimes too when it comes to prompting these generative AI platforms, it like tells you what it thinks you want to know, but it I mean, does it really think? I don't know. I would love to have a whole episode about like AI consciousness, but that's a episode for another day. But it's almost like a strange people pleaser.
Yeah, which is also why I mean, there's 2 things. Prompting is really important. I think a lot of people don't see prompting as a skill in itself when it's one of the most important skills when it comes to AI. A lot of times when people are say like, "AI gives me the stupidest responses," or "AI, like, was completely wrong about this thing," my first thought is always, well, what was the prompt that you used? Because my personal ChatGPT is not a people pleaser. It's constantly telling me the things that I don't want to hear. But I sort of set it up that way and I sort of prompt it that way. But at the same time, like that is true. AI is more inclined to please and to tell you the thing that you want to hear. And so it's really important to be able to discern that. And I think one of the big ways of doing that is being really honest with yourself in the first place and asking yourself, do I believe this because I want it to be true? Or do I believe this because I have seen evidence backing this information up? And again, creatives tend to do that inner work of being able to be honest with themselves. And that is why I think in general, creatives tend to be really good leaders because they have that empathy and that sensitivity for the people around them. But then also in the age of AI, and even outside of AI, in the age of social media, my big thing always is if I have an emotional reaction to anything, have it be very positive or very negative, the first thing I do is do further research on that thing because it's probably not true. Have it come from social media, have it come from AI, it's probably not true if I am really in agreement of it or really, really against it.
Yeah, no, those are excellent points. And going back to what you said about how prompting in itself is a skill, I think prompting, a lot of it is how well can you communicate an idea and communicate what you want, even if you don't totally know what you want. Maybe that's where you're going to these generative AI platforms to begin with. But would you say that like some of the best creatives, the best, best creatives who are assumed to be great leaders are also kind of like, skilled communicators where they can, lead a team and be able to, say what they need to say, how they need to say it so that it translates to, the employees or to clients and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, one of the running jokes in the industry, I've been saying a lot of the running jokes, but one of the running jokes in the industry is that AI it can't replace commercial creators because the client can never explain what they want. Um, and so, I mean, that's exactly the truth. Like, for AI to work, you have to be an incredible communicator, which comes from storytelling, which comes from creativity. And also, it comes from having a very clear picture in your head of what you want. And creatives are trained to do that, to have a very, very, very clear picture in their head and to not accept anything that isn't that very clear picture. And so even if maybe their first 5 prompts are not getting what they want, they're not going to accept that. They're going to keep prompting until they got exactly what they want.
So before we wrap up, I do want to ask you a question that I've been thinking about since our first discussion offline. We didn't have any cameras recording. You said that original art is fan fiction of the Bible. I would love for you to explain that. Even if like listeners are tuning out right now, that's totally fine. I want to know what you meant by that because yeah, please explain.
Well, if you think about, like, the 16th chapel, the painting on top of it is of God touching Adam and transferring all knowledge to him, and consciousness to him. If you think about all of the first Renaissance paintings, I mean, all of them are depictions of scenes from the Bible, of people in the Bible, have it be Mary, have it be Jesus. It's one of the reasons why we consider Jesus to be a white man is because Renaissance painters were just using each other as models for their paintings, and the people they had access to were white men and sometimes women, which is the reason why, Jesus has really long hair. And so almost like all the first, like that renaissance of art, not like cave paintings, but the renaissance of art, it's all just fan fiction of the Bible. And even, stories like Dante's Inferno, that is fan fiction of the Bible. That's it deciding, like, what it truly is hell. There are so many different examples, but so much of the first art that we have access to, because so much art is just destroyed with time, a lot of the first art that we have access to as people that we study so deeply, it all came from the Bible.
Thank you for that answer. Again, I have been thinking about that since you said it to me. um, Katya, this has been really fun. Seriously, I really appreciate your time and your expertise and talking to a bunch of tech people about AI in your industry. So this has been wonderful. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, and go ahead and share it with your network. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Track2AI Podcast, using the number 2, of course. And to sign up to our email list, you can visit www.track2aipodcast.com. Until next time, stay in the know and get on track.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the guest are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Shay2 Inc., its management, or employees. Listeners should not solely rely upon the information provided and should consult appropriate professionals for advice tailored to their individual specific needs. Neither the host, guest, nor Shay2 Inc. make any warranties, expressed or implied, regarding the information provided.